Listen, listen. A story landed in my ear a few nights ago when I asked for a bedtime story to help me fall asleep. And I called out to my storyteller on the other side, Phyllis Wheatley, and immediately she began to tell me a story. I didn't write it down, but I'm going to share it with you as much as I can remember of it. If I stumble along, it's don't blame Phyllis Wheatley. Anyway, I asked her to tell me the story, and this is what I heard. The story begins that in the middle of a village there's a dragon, and the dragon has ears like a fox, and it could breathe fire if it wanted to because it's a dragon. But it didn't. It was a quiet dragon, and it didn't breathe the fire, although it could. And people lived around the dragon. I mean, there was a village that grew up around this dragon, and the village and the people lived together. But people believe stories about dragons and fierceness and fire and breathing fire, and so to stay safe, they planted a forest around the dragon so that there would be a safe distance between themselves and the dragon. And yes, so in the clearing in the middle, the dragon lived there, you know, living its dragon life. And there was a thick forest around the dragon, and then surrounding the forest was this village that had been there for time immemorial. And it was a large village, almost like a metropolis, but people lived as if it was a village, no matter how old it was. And one day, at the edge of the village, someone saw far off in the distance a cloud appearing. It kind of wafted and floated, and it was a kind of a yellowish, beigeish color. There was no sound, but it just seemed to be drifting towards the village. And the people who live at the edge of the village, and it's their job to see what's going on, they kept a watch on it, and it grew closer and closer. And eventually, the people who do the watching at the edge of the village could see that it was actually a caravan. It was a caravan, a group walking in formation, carrying umbrellas, heading toward the village. And eventually, it did get there in kind of a straight line. And at the front of the caravan, the leader greeted the watchers and explained that they were out viewing the world to see what else is beyond their own civilization. And they asked questions about the village, about the people, and eventually they mentioned the dragon with the ears like a fox that lived in the middle of the forest undisturbed. And the leader of the caravan became curious because what is a dragon? We need to see it. Do we have permission? And the village people said, well, go ahead. I mean, it's been there peacefully. It doesn't really interfere with us. We don't interfere with it. But if you'd like to go have a look, go ahead. But be careful. We don't know what happens if you go past the forest and into the clearing. And so the leader took 10 from the caravan, made a straight line, and asking questions eventually got to the edge of the forest and felt their way through and got all the way into the center where the dragon lived. At least that's what the 10th man told the villagers after he came back. He said that he was at the back, they walked into the center, and that there was suddenly a sound like a wheel turning in the wind. Something like that. Something like that. He said it wasn't frightening or anything, it was just very present. And then it stopped. And then it was quiet. And then it was really quiet. There was no sound. And as he looked a little bit in, he couldn't see the group of the caravan ahead of him. And in the center, in the clearing, was a lamb, he said, like a question. A lamb, but with ears like a fox. And the quiet was disturbing to him. And the disappearance of the caravan was disturbing. And so the last in the caravan quietly retreated and walked to the edge of the village, gathered up the rest of the caravan, said goodbye to the villagers, and went back where they had come from. And then they had a story to tell their people about the dangers of the lamb with the ears like a fox. Shout out to Jen Lynn of Jen Lynn's Tarot, who reminded me that I can tell stories sometimes. I hope this story helps you to fall asleep. It helped me to fall asleep when I asked for it. It's a bedtime tale. Thanks for listening.